You know what the Wehrmacht called it?
The Devil's Orchestra.
Imagine this. You're a German officer in 1944. You fought across Poland, France, and Russia. You've seen everything. Everything. Or so you thought. Then the Americans arrive in Normandy, and within seconds, the ground beneath you transforms into a nightmare you didn't know was possible. 12 shells per minute from a single gun. The German artillery manuals said it couldn't be done, but American gunners didn't read German manuals. Let's go back to 1943. The Wehrmacht was the most experienced fighting force on Earth. They'd been at war for 4 years. Their officers had studied artillery doctrine for decades. They knew the math, the physics, the limits of what was possible. German artillery could fire about 4 rounds per minute at maximum sustained rate. Maybe 6 if you pushed it. That was the standard. That was what everyone did. Everyone. So, when German intelligence assessed American capabilities before D-Day, they calculated based on what they knew. They expected American guns to perform similarly to their own. Maybe a bit slower since the Americans were new to this whole industrial warfare thing. They were so catastrophically wrong. You see, the Americans weren't playing by European rules. While German doctrine focused on precision and careful fire control, the Americans had a different philosophy entirely. They believed in something the Wehrmacht would consider wasteful, almost insane. Overwhelming firepower delivered at impossible speed. The weapon at the center of this story? The M2A1 105mm howitzer. It doesn't look special. It's not massive like the German 88mm. It's not exotic. It's just efficient. Brilliantly, ruthlessly efficient. But here's what made it different. The Americans designed it like they designed everything else, like a factory machine.
June 1944, Normandy. The first major engagements after D-Day. German officers are watching American positions through binoculars, calling in coordinates, preparing for counter-battery fire. Standard procedure. Then, the American guns open up. 1 shell, 2 shells, 3 shells. The German officers are counting, timing it, doing the mental math. This is normal. This is expected. 4 shells, 5 shells, 6 shells. Wait. 7, 8, 9, 10. The counting stops because the Germans realize something is wrong. This isn't slowing down. This isn't stopping. The shells are arriving in a continuous stream. 11, 12. 60 seconds, 12 shells from 1 gun. Now imagine that's not 1 gun. That's an entire battery. 6 guns, 72 shells in 1 minute. The German positions don't just get hit, they get erased. Here's what the Wehrmacht didn't understand. The Americans had redesigned everything about artillery warfare. The M2A1 had a split trail carriage that deployed faster. It had a rapid transverse mechanism that let you shift targets without repositioning the entire gun. The ammunition was semi-fixed, meaning faster loading. The crew was trained not like soldiers, but like a factory assembly line. Each man had 1 job, 1 motion, repeated endlessly. No wasted movement. No hesitation. The German way. The gun commander calculated everything. Precision, thought, time. The American way? The Fire Direction Center did the math. The crew just executed, like machines. Because that's what American industry was good at, turning men into efficient components of a larger system. But here's the truly dark part of this story. The Wehrmacht never adapted. You'd think after the first encounters, German doctrine would change. They'd warn their troops, adjust their tactics. But that's not what happened. Because German officers couldn't believe it. There are intercepted communications from late 1944, 9 months into the campaign, where German commanders are still reporting that American fire rates must be from multiple batteries or coordinated air and artillery strikes. They couldn't accept that the Americans had fundamentally changed what was possible. And here's why. The German military was built on expertise and experience. Their officers knew artillery. They'd studied it their entire careers. To admit that the Americans, who barely had an army 5 years earlier, had completely revolutionized the field, that was psychologically impossible. So instead, they kept sending their troops into American artillery zones with tactics designed for a 4 rounds per minute world. Those troops died in a 12 rounds per minute reality. The numbers are staggering. American artillery caused approximately 70% of German casualties in the European theater. Not tanks, not infantry, not aircraft, artillery. And the Germans knew it was coming every time. They could hear the guns. They just couldn't escape the volume of fire. There's a quote from a German veteran recorded after the war. "We feared the Russian winter. We respected the British infantry. But the American artillery? That was hell itself."
So why does this matter? Because this story isn't really about artillery. It's about what happens when industrial thinking meets military tradition. The Germans had better trained crews, better optics, better metallurgy. They had everything except the one thing that mattered: the ability to think differently. The Americans didn't win because they had better soldiers. They won because they treated warfare like they treated car manufacturing. Break it down, standardize it, speed it up, overwhelm the problem with volume. This is the same thinking that built the Liberty ships, the B-17s, the tanks, everything. Mass production applied to mass destruction. And the Wehrmacht, for all their experience, never understood that this was a different kind of war. You couldn't outskill this. You couldn't outthink it, because American doctrine didn't care about individual excellence. It cared about systemic efficiency. 12 shells per minute wasn't a feat of strength or courage. It was a feat of industrial engineering. The dark truth? Thousands of German soldiers died not because they weren't brave or skilled, but because their officers couldn't imagine that warfare had changed, that everything they'd learned was obsolete. By the time they figured it out, it was too late. The Devil's Orchestra had already played its final note. And that's a lesson that echoes far beyond World War II. The most dangerous thing in any conflict isn't your enemy's strength. It's your inability to imagine they might fight a completely different war than the one you prepared for. If this story left you thinking, hit subscribe. We uncover the dark, forgotten moments that changed history. Next time, we're diving into something even stranger. You won't want to miss it.